afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, thank you. It's very nice to see you. I'm Sam Faulkner, and I'm the interim head of school at Moray House School of Education and Sport, and I'm just delighted to welcome you here today for our Moray House annual lecture, and hope that you've arrived here in some beautiful sunshine, and I hope obviously that you have a wonderful evening with us today. Just a couple of housekeeping comments first. This is being recorded, just so that you know, and we have no fire drills expected. So if there's a fire drill, we will need to exit from the room, but we don't expect that to happen. Before I come back to you, I am going to pass straight over to Iona, who is going to provide you a welcome in Gaelic.
Okay, Fes Gamaga Villa Harston, Iona Nichiligain, Agus Hamin Orichi show, the program came at Aking MA Bunskola Le Gaelic ek type Vudiv. Ha na overtolliges go, faaltje a chudarev, gutai vudiv feskeridju, son orach na heiche noch. Hashing ieder doi, en nudet akiv aangeking a wahad, agus jew adav nar kuchoch wane. En noch, hashing it in a fewed, die be kleinjing von narstal of Boyd Robertson, a hakus shelloig a horshgain it acha canon agus kulter na Gaelic, an een behe na halape. Let jew blue hellig it cohexa nulum, Shelly the Gaelic, mar vian chekesk, agus Shelly gedlú mar hanig fas, na skolchen na halape, agus na krappen starre eva eon gus seo a horskupul. Heit koen des a horshechat in het doyen ha eon gus taich gechumaldi shachanan agus is a hulter, anje a chud it kuschen ha torspue de draste, agus heit groichen a geutig bue a horschit fas na Gaelic san namri Czech a jespet. Mus kushing faaltje vla in Mars Dollar Robertson geta. Kushing faaltje vash in Dr. Sam Faulkner, kennerst eteraal mon skole, ik en show ik taivudiv, son faaltje a gerudiv, bu skole nulum, agus spors, agus bekan a glanging, munigalic ik olhei genetium.
Thank you so much, Iona, and I would love to say that I understood everything that you said there, but I'm afraid I cannot claim to be a Gaelic speaker. However, I do want to spend a little bit of time with you just now, reflecting on the influential role that Moray House, I think, has played in the future and the current place and the future of Gaelic language. So please do bear with me. We established Scotland's first chair of Celtic in 1882. And through our Department of Celtic and Scottish Studies, we've been deeply involved in policy development in Scotland. The university is now a centre for Gaelic research and collections. We're home to the School of Scottish Studies archives, a resource containing thousands of hours of recorded stories, songs, poems, and rhyme in Gaelic, Scots, and English. The university hosts the Carmichael Watson Project, a collection of 19th century Gaelic folklore, recognised by UNESCO as one of the world's most important archives in their 2014 Memory of a World project. In recent years, these collections have become the basis for our research into the development of Gaelic artificial intelligence with the University of Glasgow and the University of Highlands and Islands, and ensures that Gaelic remains relevant in the digital age. In addition to our internationally significant research and collections, the university continues to look forward towards securing the future of Gaelic in Scotland. Gaelic learning is now more accessible than ever at the university, with our credit-bearing course for Gaelic beginners available to all undergraduate and postgraduate students. The University Centre for Open Learning continues to offer Gaelic evening courses for members of the local community, and recently expanded their provision to include a unique Return to Gaelic course for former Gaelic speakers who wish to start using the language again. Here at Moray House School of Education and Sport, we have been educating the next generation of Gaelic medium teachers since 2014. Our programmes offer the opportunity for both fluent Gaelic speakers and those new to the language, perhaps I should come and join, to become Gaelic medium primary teachers by means of strong partnership working both with the School of Languages, Literatures and Cultures within the University of Edinburgh and with the Sabhal Ostaig, Scotland's Gaelic College. Our learner students are supported to reaching fluency through our partnership with Sabhal Ostaig, which allows them to live and learn in a Gaelic-speaking community. We've had 28 students graduating from the programmes We currently have 26 students who are studying with us. The university's commitments to Gaelic research, learning, teaching, and partnership working were formally outlined in our first Gaelic language plan that was published in 2013. Over the course of that plan, the university saw a significant advancement in the use, learning, and visibility of Gaelic on our campuses. Commitments included the founding of Gaelic Week Edinburgh, the development of a bilingual signage policy, and the establishment of a permanent Gaelic officer post. Our second Gaelic plan, built on these commitments in the ambitious progressive ways, was presented for 2019 for 2024. The university also expanded its partnership working in this period, directly supporting the Council's Capital Gaelic project, a network of organisations in Edinburgh working towards the promotion of Gaelic in the city. While we have seen significant progress since our second Gaelic plan was published in 2019, the university continues to seek ways in which to develop Gaelic on campus and in our local community. To that end, the university has put together a draft Gaelic plan which sets out strategic direction and commitments to Gaelic for the next 5-year period. It's important that our plan reflects the priorities of our students, our staff, and our local community. We therefore are today launching a public consultation on our draft Gaelic plan, and we would like to hear from you and those that you know, if you can pass it on. And that's whether you're a Gaelic speaker or not. And we'd like to hear about your thoughts of the plan. The draft plan and consultation survey will be available on the Gaelic at the University of Edinburgh web pages and on the university website, where you will also find dates for in-person consultation workshops. We also share a link to this via a QR code at the end of the lecture today, so please do keep a lookout for that at the end. That's a potted history, and I hopefully gives you some indication as to why it's so important to us and why we have chosen to focus our prestigious Moray House annual lecture on Gaelic education. And we are absolutely delighted that Professor Boyd Robertson has agreed to deliver this lecture today. Thank you, Boyd, for joining us. But before you speak, I will pass back to Iona, who will share with all of you here today the phenomenal contribution that you made to Gaelic teacher education over the years. Thank you.
Professor Boyd Robertson was principal of Ostaig, the National Centre for Gaelic Language and Culture, and one of the constituent colleges of the University of the Highlands and Islands from 2009 until 2018. A graduate of Aberdeen University, he trained as a teacher of Gaelic and went on to become principal teacher at Oban High School, senior lecturer at Jordanhill College of Education, and reader in Gaelic at the University of Strathclyde. He has extensive experience of teacher education, curriculum development, and production of resources for learners, including the Teach Yourself Gaelic course and Speaking Our Language TV series, for which he was language consultant. He has written widely on Gaelic education in publications such as Scottish Education, The Other Languages of Europe, and Revitalising Gaelic in Scotland. He has been deeply involved in the work of the Gaelic agencies and community bodies. As chair of the Gaelic Books Council and of the Glasgow Arts Body in Lochran, as vice chair of Comana Gaelic, and a member of the initial Borsna Gaelic, the government-appointed Gaelic Development Agency. Co-author of the Essential Gaelic Dictionary, published by Hodder, he chaired the Inter-University Fachlar na Gaelic, Historical Dictionary of Scottish Gaelic, Steering Committee, and was a member of the Commission on Parliamentary Reform, which reported to the Scottish Parliament in June 2017. He served on the BBC Educational Broadcasting Council for Scotland and was convener of its Gaelic Advisory Panel. He was also convener of the Scottish Qualifications Authority Gaelic Assessment Panel. He was a subject specialist reviewer in Celtic Studies for the Quality Assurance Agency for Higher Education and a member of the Higher Education Funding Council Celtic Studies Panel for the Research Assessment Exercise. He was an external examiner at St Mary's College, Queen's University Belfast, and a member of the external review teams at the Universities of Cork and Galway. In 2022, he led a reform of the Arne Magnusson Institute at the University of Iceland. He undertook roles with a number of international bodies in the field of minority languages, including the Foundation for Inter-Ethnic Relations, the Mercator Education Project, and the Council of Europe. An early fellow of the Higher Education Academy, his services to education were recognised by the award of an honorary doctorate by the University of Edinburgh in 2014, and his services to the language by the Gaelic Ambassador accolade bestowed by the Scottish Government at the Royal National Mod in 2015, and by the Sar Guaishna Gaelic Award from Borsmouth Gaelic in 2018. He was made a Fellow of the Association of Scottish Literary Studies in 2012 and became a Fellow of the Royal Society of Edinburgh in 2021. He was the chair of the board of NHS Highland in 2019 to 2023. Tonight, Professor Robertson is going to speak on the topic of Gaelic language and culture in Scottish education.
Iskema a Harston, those are complaining. Dan is Jefferson Picken Gaelic a Glechke, Ekendosha, Son Shelton, Gaelic has the Aken. Sons on the barrel han Norwich Gusady. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, or is it good evening? It's on the cusp of good evening anyway. I'm truly honoured to be asked to give the Moray House annual lecture, and I want to thank you for the invitation to do so. A lecture affords me an opportunity to shine a light on what to many is an obscure or esoteric part of Scottish life, namely the Gaelic language and culture. I shall outline the role of the language and culture in Scottish education, in Scottish heritage and life, consider the place of Gaelic and Scottish education, and trace the development of Gaelic medium education. I want to dedicate this lecture to the memory of the much lamented Katie Murray of Kilmuir Skye and Curry Midlothian, known to many in this audience for her lifetime of unstinting service to her native language and to education in this city and nationally. The Gaelic language has a special place in Scottish history, heritage, life and culture, and it had a fundamental role in the formation of the Kingdom of Scotland. The term Scotty or Scots was used by Latin writers to refer to the Gaelic-speaking inhabitants of Ireland who migrated to the western seaboard of neighbouring Britain in the 4th and 5th centuries AD. They would probably be called illegal immigrants today. And they came in small boats too. As the late Dr. John Bannerman of the Scottish History Department of this university averred, the history of the Scots in Scotland begins with the foundation of the Kingdom of Dalriada, mainly Argyll and its islands. It is arguable, he continued, that the advent of Fergus More, king of the Irish settlers, is the single most important event in Scotland's history. To this, we owe two basic facts of life: that we are today Scots, living in a country called Scotland. He adds that with a few early exceptions, all subsequent kings and queens of Scots, down to our current monarch, are descended from Fergus More. His name, incidentally, translates as Big Fergie, not a reference to a football manager. Gaelic was a name given to their language by these Irish settlers, and it went on to become the language of crown and government after a series of conquests and pacts with peoples such as the Picts of the Northeast and the Britons of Strathclyde. That position of linguistic ascendancy lasted for around 2 centuries until it was replaced by an early form of English. However, Gaelic continued to be the administrative language of the formidable Lordship of the Isles, which held sway in the West Highlands and Islands until the late 15th century. There are those who seek to rewrite history and deny the extent of Gaelic influence on Scotland. They pop up regularly on social media and in the correspondence columns of our regional and national press with their ill-informed assertions. They are contradicted, however, by the evidence of place names across the country, from Braemar to Stranraer, from Tobermory to Balerno, from Inverness to Troon. The footprint of the language is readily apparent to anyone who knows that names containing the initial elements that you see there on the screen, Ach, Bal, Ben, Dun, Glen, Inver, Kill, Kin, Loch, Strath, and the descriptive elements, Moor, Bake, Ban, Du, Goram, Uanya, Cherak, Garav, etc., all derive from Gaelic. We meet here in Edinburgh, the Gaelic form of which is Dunedin, one of many Scottish place names which have been adopted in other continents, leading to Dunedin in New Zealand and in Florida, Lismore in Australia, and Calgary in Canada, for example. But how can you be expected to know the derivation of place names and the influence of the Gaelic language if that is not taught in schools? In my time at Jordanhill College and at the University of Strathclyde, I had the pleasure of teaching Celtic studies to enthusiastic classes of undergraduate and postgraduate students, including, I'm happy to say, the current Minister for Education. Each year, I was struck by the gaps in students' knowledge of Scottish history and culture and of the Highlands. It was a deficit they themselves acknowledged, and it was an indictment of the curriculum in primary and secondary education. Some might have had a vague awareness of clan society, of the massacre of Glencoe and of the Jacobite rebellions, but little else. One of the leading Gaelic scholars of the 20th century, Dr. John McInnes of the Celtic and Scottish Studies Department of this university, summed the situation up thus in an essay on the Gaelic literary tradition. I believe it is still possible to leave school without hearing anything, or at least anything of interest about Gaelic. Those children who hear about the Picts and Scots and the rest are most unlikely to learn that the Scots quite simply were the Gaels, that their language, which spread throughout the country, is still a living tongue, and that it has been used by generations of major Scottish writers, some of whom are living at the present time. When state education was introduced with the Education Scotland Act of 1872, around 250,000 people spoke Gaelic, despite sustained attempts by the Crown to curb the power of the Highland clans and to target the language and the culture of the Gael. The Privy Council Act of 1616 was probably the most explicit articulation of this policy. It stated that the vulgar English tongue be universally planted, and the Irish language, which is one of the chief and principal causes of the continuance of barbarity and incivility among the inhabitants of the Isles and Highlands, be abolished and removed. Note the reference to Irish rather than Gaelic, which indicates that the origins of Gaelic were understood and that Scottish Gaelic had yet to be seen as a separate vernacular from Irish. The targeting of Gaelic language and culture became even more pronounced after the failure of the 18th century Jacobite rebellions. The government, now based in London, was determined to bring the Highlands into line with the rest of the country and launched a prolonged onslaught on all badges of cultural distinctiveness, notably the language, the bagpipes, and the kilt. The 18th and 19th centuries saw the clearance of inhabitants from the traditional lands, leading to large-scale emigration from the Highlands and continuing suppression of the language and culture. By the late 1800s, Centuries of repressive government policies and mass immigration had reduced the number of Gaelic speakers to around 6% of the Scottish population. Almost a fifth of the 250,000 were monoglot Gaelic speakers, but this was disregarded by the architects of the Education Act. No provision was made in the Act for Gaelic education or for education through the medium of Gaelic, despite the fact that many of the previously private schools run by societies and churches had made provision for the language. After a campaign by Gaelic societies such as Oban High School, better known now for running the Royal National Mod, the 1918 Education Act required education authorities to make, quote, adequate provision for Gaelic in Gaelic-speaking areas, unquote. The Act did not specify what constituted adequate provision or define Gaelic-speaking areas. It did sanction the teaching of Gaelic as a subject, but not using the language as a medium of education. Individual class teachers did elect to use Gaelic as a medium of both communication and instruction, particularly in rural settings where Gaelic was the language of the community, but that was unofficial and ad hoc. And these instances contrasted strongly with the norm of active exclusion of the mother tongue from the classroom, reinforced by frequent use of physical punishment of pupils who naturally or inadvertently use their home language in school. It was to be a century after the 1872 Education Act before Gaelic became a nationally approved medium of instruction in Scottish schools. A major reorganization of local government in 1974 brought the Outer Hebrides together as a unitary authority known as Comhairle na nGaedheal. The significance of this development in respect of Gaelic can scarcely be overstated. It meant that Gaelic-speaking islanders were to have control of their own affairs for the first time since the demise of the Lordship of the Isles at the end of the 15th century. One of the initial actions of Comhairle na nGaedheal was the adoption of a bilingual policy, quickly followed in 1975 by the setting up of a bilingual education project. The project, which had government approval and funding, began as a pilot, but was gradually extended to all schools in the council area. It was an innovative project in terms of its linguistic and its curricular approach, with environmental studies majoring as the vehicle for investigation of the community and the culture. It's worth reflecting for a moment on the import of developments in the 60s and 70s, which contributed to a transformation in public attitudes to and perceptions about the language and culture. The establishment of the Highlands and Islands Development Board in 1965 and the reception given to a new school of Gaelic poets, led by Sorley MacLean, George Campbell-Hay, Derek Thompson, Ian Crichton-Smith, and Donald Macaulay, fostered a greater recognition of the special nature of the area and the riches of the language. Professor Derek Thompson, who co-founded the notable Gurram Literary Magazine in 1951, was also responsible for setting up the influential Gaelic Books Council, Comhairle na nGaedheal, in 1968. The year 1973 was a remarkable year, which saw the founding of the Gaelic College Sol Mór Ostaig by Sir Ian Noble, a merchant banker from Edinburgh, and the formation of the rock band Runrig. I like to tell people that I was a contemporary of the members of the band as well. These two remarkable developments gave the language a major fillip in Skye, where it had been receding rapidly, and soon brought the language and its heritage to national and international attention. The mood music around Gaelic, created by Runrig and contemporary groups such as Nahawkenny, was harnessed and given the oxygen of publicity by the West Highland Free Press, founded in Skye by Brian Wilson and others in 1972. James Hunter's seminal history of the Highland clearances, the making of the crofting community, published in 1976, gave readers a much better understanding of factors which had shaped the Highlands and also contributed to a newfound spirit and a self-belief in the Highlands and Islands. The advent of Corna na NGaedheal, already alluded to, was another progressive step in fostering positivity in the Gaelic-speaking communities. And the Council introduced a number of significant initiatives, as well as the bilingual education project. One of these was a community education project largely funded by the Van Leer Foundation in the Netherlands, and another was the film agency Cinema Skira, which went on to spawn the Celtic Film Festival. It would be appropriate at this juncture to pay tribute to the visionary Dr. Finlay MacLeod, educationalist, writer, activist, and broadcaster, who was at the heart of these and of many other initiatives designed to regenerate the language in its Western Isles heartlands, and whom we sadly lost a few months ago. Encouraging as all these developments were, parents and language agencies had become increasingly concerned by the apparently inexorable attrition of the language in the Gaelic-speaking communities, the very heartlands of the language. This was starkly reflected in the census statistics, which you see displayed here now, and the reduction to 1.1% of the population of Scotland in 2011, at the last full census that we have recorded. The achievements and perceived limitations of the bilingual project whetted the appetite for a stronger form of education through the medium of Gaelic, and evidence from Wales, Catalonia, the Basque Country, and other language communities demonstrated that education, predominantly through the minority language, expedited the acquisition of the target language and consolidated its usage. And I'm very glad to say that there's representatives of the communities, linguistic communities in Wales and Catalonia present with us today, and I warmly welcome them. Parents took the initiative in forming Cróigeann or playgroups in their localities, and a national umbrella body, Corlin Scotinari, the Gaelic Preschool Playgroups Association, was formed to extend provision. That movement was led by another Finlay MacLeod. Don't have to be Finlay MacLeod to be known in the Gaelic world, who also passed away late last year, and who was an indefatigable campaigner for greater provision for the language in early years education. A similar grassroots movement led to the founding of Féisceann an Gael. After the success of the pioneering community festival, Féis Mharay, inaugurated in Barra in 1981. Both of these bodies, which contributed so much to the upsurge of interest and activity in the language and culture, were community-based and operated outside the confines of the formal education system. A research study by the Glasgow University Education Department yielded evidence of strong demand for Gaelic medium education in various parts of Scotland, including centres of population like Glasgow and Inverness. The Glasgow Skye Association responded to these findings and played a leading role in building the case for Gaelic medium education and in persuading the authorities to make provision for it. A conference organised by the association in Glasgow in 1983 heard direct international experience of minority language education and sparked initiatives including the formation of a Gaelic Bilingual Schools Association, which did much to promote and support Gaelic medium education in the city and its hinterland. Gaelic medium provision was initiated in schools in Glasgow and Inverness in 1985, and the reasons for these particular locations have been hinted at already. Glasgow has traditionally been a mecca for Gaels seeking higher and vocational education and employment opportunities, and many have made their city their home. The setting up of numerous territorial associations in the city is reflective of that diaspora. Little wonder then that Glasgow had the largest number of Gaelic speakers in successive censuses in the late 20th and early 21st centuries. Inverness, likewise, has been a magnet for Gaels, and there has been a steady drift of population from the west coast and island communities to the Moray Firth conurbation. The large concentrations of Gaelic speakers in Glasgow and Inverness made the establishment of Gaelic medium units a feasible proposition, and in a sense, adopted the model of gathered congregations found in certain churches in these cities. A Gaelic unit could be set up in an urban centre with multiple schools much more easily than could be done in the more traditional Gaelic-speaking areas, where the viability of a single school that often serves villages and rural communities might be threatened by the relocation of some pupils to a Gaelic medium unit in a neighbouring district. The Gaelic medium units in Sir John Maxwell Primary in Glasgow and in Central Primary in Inverness opened in August 1985 with 21 and 10 pupils respectively. They were the trailblazers of a movement that came to be hailed by leading educationalist Professor Matthew McKeever, then of the General Teaching Council of Scotland, as, quote, one of the undoubted success stories of Scottish education, unquote. It took a concerted effort, vigorous campaigning, and adroit advocacy by parents, community groups, language activists, to realise these bridgeheads of Gaelic medium education and to win concessions from often sceptical and sometimes obstructive officials in the education authorities. As one of the parents campaigning for GME in Glasgow, who had regular interaction with officers and councillors, I was struck by how much more receptive individual councillors were than education officers. Interestingly, one of the reasons advanced for not proceeding with GME was the danger of setting a precedent for other minority language groups in the city. GME spread gradually to primary schools in other areas, such as Portree and Skye, and to the secondary sector with the opening of units in Hill Park Secondary in Glasgow and Milburn Academy in Inverness. Today, around 5,500 pupils are educated through Gaelic in nursery schools from Greenock to Thurso, in primary schools from Kilmarnock to Aberdeen, and in secondaries from Cumbernauld to Stornoway. And I'm grateful to Bortna Gaelic for allowing me to use this slide, illustrating the spread of these provisions. Only a small minority of children in Gaelic medium education are fluent in the language on entry to nursery or primary education, and most pupils come from non-Gaelic speaking homes or homes where only one parent speaks the language. Why then have parents elected to enroll their offspring in Gaelic medium education? Research has shown that there are various factors that influence the decision. In some cases, the motivation is maintenance and development of the mother tongue, while in others, it is restoration to the family of a language that has skipped a generation or two. Other reasons advanced are acquisition of a second language, the perceived advantage of bilingualism, and access to Gaelic culture and heritage. It is likely that the quality of the education offered in Gaelic medium schools is another influencing factor. Some skeptical observers have speculated that small class sizes might have been an attraction in urban settings. but classes in the larger units and schools in towns and cities are equivalent to class sizes in English medium schools. A major factor in the growth of Gaelic medium education has been the scheme of specific grants for Gaelic education, first introduced in 1986 by George Younger, then Secretary of State for Scotland, following a conference held at Moray, Ostaig that year. And this is a slide of him speaking at the conference. Under this scheme, much resisted by COSLA, local authorities receive 75% of the cost of new Gaelic medium provision from the government for a defined period of time. Councils can bid for new or extended provision in their own area, but are also encouraged to work collaboratively, particularly on the production of new teaching and learning resources, largely channeled through the Storlan agency in Stornoway. Funding of the scheme has increased from an initial $250,000 to just under $4.5 million, but regrettably has not increased in the last decade or so. The existence of the scheme made it harder for local authorities to resist parental requests for Gaelic medium education, as any associated start-up or development costs were largely offset by the grant available. The National Language Agency, Cumhna Gaelic, CNAC for short, played a key role in brokering agreements between groups of parents and the local authorities in matters such as issues that arose around transport to schools from out with school catchment areas and across local authority boundaries. Busing has had certain connotations in the United States education context, but in Scotland, buses and taxis were crucial components of access to Gaelic medium education. CNAC also facilitated the formation of local and national structures to give expression to the parental voice. There have been several significant milestones in the development of Gaelic medium education. One such was the opening of the first dedicated Gaelic medium school in Glasgow in Ashley Street in 1999 in the Charing Cross area of the city. And I remember well when parents were meeting to discuss the offer of this building, which had become derelict since its previous use as a local primary school, and a hot debate taking place between parents as to the acceptability of this rundown building. And the chairman of the Parents Association said to the group meeting, "I know it's a dump, but it's our dump." This had been the aim of campaigners since the early 1980s, but a compromise Gaelic unit was accepted in 1985 at Sir John Maxwell School. In order to get some Gaelic medium provision established in the city. The housing of a Gaelic unit in a mainly English medium school was not felt to be the optimal vehicle for Gaelic medium education, and parents became increasingly concerned about the extent to which their children were being exposed to English and were eager to have a school that could offer an entirely Gaelic environment. The experience of minority languages in other countries suggested that dedicated schools could deliver fluency in the target language more quickly and more fully. Thus, it proved in Ashley Street, which witnessed such a steep increase in the number of parents opting for Gaelic medium education that within 7 years, it was necessary to move to larger premises in the former Woodside Secondary. And all through Gaelic medium school, Scoil Gaelic Lasaho, catering for pupils aged 3 to 18, became operational in 2006. A year later, the first ever purpose-built Gaelic medium primary school opened in Inverness, and further dedicated Gaelic medium primary schools have subsequently been established here in Edinburgh, in Fort William and in Portree. The setting up of a dedicated Gaelic medium school in Portree was a matter of considerable contention in the town, with arguments of educational apartheid being voiced by some in the community and in the existing school who did not wish children to be separated. Proponents of a new Gaelic medium school argued that growth of the language was being inhibited by the prevailing model of coexistence. I would like to show you now two photographs that appeared in the West Highland Free Press in September last year as part of a series on enrolments in Primary 1 this session. These two photographs show the intake in the original English medium school and in the new Gaelic medium school in Portree. As you can see, there are 3 times as many pupils in the Gaelic medium school. That represents a dramatic shift from the recent past, when the two media coexisted in the same school and pupil numbers were broadly 50-50. It is further affirmation that where a Gaelic school is provided, a dedicated Gaelic school is provided, the numbers will grow and the language will flourish. To someone like myself, who attended Portree High School in the 1960s and was part of an education system that relegated Gaelic to subject study and informal social use, it is quite extraordinary to witness the upturn in the language's roles and fortune in such an English-dominated administrative and commercial centre. The confidence in Gaelic medium education exhibited by parents in Portree may to some extent have been influenced by the findings of a 1999 research project into the attainment of pupils in Gaelic medium education, undertaken by a team led by Professor Richard Johnston of Stirling University. The main conclusion of the research, which compared pupils educated through the medium of Gaelic with peers educated through the medium of English, was that those educated in Gaelic were not being disadvantaged in comparison with children educated through English. Let's just read that again. Children educated in Gaelic were not being disadvantaged in comparison with children educated through English, and were in many instances outperforming English medium pupils, while also gaining the advantage of proficiency in 2 languages. Similarly, positive results were reported in a 2010 Edinburgh University study, and the 2005 Schools Inspectorate Report found that pupils in Gaelic medium primary schools are generally attaining well. These findings give parents and education authorities alike a considerable measure of reassurance about the quality of education on offer. But what about Gaelic medium education in the secondary sector? It's fair to say that secondary Gaelic medium education has not kept pace with primary Gaelic medium education. And there's a sharp drop-off in uptake on entry to secondary. In session 22-23, 3,856 pupils were enrolled in Gaelic medium education programs in primary school, while 1,616 were being taught subjects through Gaelic in secondary. The drop-off is in part due to the more fragmented nature of the secondary curriculum, which requires specialist subject teachers in contrast to the primary model of the single class teacher. A small cohort in primary can be viable, whereas in secondary, that cohort is spread thinly across the range of subjects pupils elect to study. The difficulty in recruiting teachers in various subject specialisms has also constrained the development of GME in the secondary sector. As a result, the use of Gaelic as a medium is restricted to 2 or 3 subjects in most schools. Only 3 schools offer a significant number of specialisms in Gaelic, history being the most widely taught through Gaelic. Candidates may sit Gaelic versions of national exams in history, geography, maths, and modern studies, and higher maths may be taken in Gaelic. But uptake of Gaelic medium exams remains stubbornly low, with just 135 presentations across 4 subjects at National 5 in 2023. The expansion of Gaelic medium education has been most striking in Glasgow, where there are now 5 early learning centres, 4 primary schools with a combined roll of 837, and an all-through 5 to 18 school with a secondary roll of 449. Such has been the demand in the Glasgow conurbation that primary 1 entry has been capped at 140 in recent years. And it has been reported that some applications for places have been frustrated. A measure of the impact Gaelic medium education has had can be seen in the census figures, which were up a moment ago. Against the backdrop of an overall fall of 1,277 in the Gaelic-speaking population since the census of 2001, the 2011 census reported an increase in the number of people under 20 able to speak Gaelic. And you can see the increases there on the screen. And modest as these might appear to be, they are profoundly significant, given the downward spiral in numbers throughout the 20th century. And they offer language planners and politicians food for thought in the ongoing debate about whether or not to grant a right to Gaelic medium education in legislation. Students can continue with Gaelic medium education in further and higher education by electing to enroll in one of the courses offered either on campus or by distance learning at Solmore Ostaig, the National Centre for Gaelic Language and Culture, and a constituent college of the University of the Highlands and Islands. 623 students have exercised that option this session, and a further 960 attended the programme of short courses offered at the college last year. Included in that number are students from countries on opposing sides of the war in Ukraine. There are also courses in Gaelic and Celtic studies available to honours level at the universities of Aberdeen, Edinburgh, and Glasgow, and at UHI. Access to Gaelic learners courses is very limited in Scottish schools and is largely confined to 4 council areas: Argyll and Bute, Corn and Yellinshire, the Western Isles, Highland, and Perth and Kinross. Only 79 primary schools make any provision, and 3,719 pupils were engaged in learning the language last year. 19 of the 21 secondary schools that offer learner courses are to be found in the same council areas, with 2,748 pupils availing themselves of the opportunity to study the language. The total number of candidates taking Gaelic exams has increased gradually over the years and now stands at 610, or stood at that number, 610 in 2022. Within that figure, there has been an uptick in Gaelic fluent speakers, but a downward trend in Gaelic learners. This would seem to be in line with the general decline in the uptake of modern languages, a phenomenon many attribute to the narrowing of the curriculum in the later secondary years, and about which there has been much discussion in educational circles. The availability of Gaelic medium education and Gaelic learner education is in part hampered by the shortage of Gaelic teachers. A number of initiatives have been taken by local authorities, teacher education institutions, and Scottish Government to address the problem, and I shall touch briefly on some of these. The Western Isles Council, Corla Ninyalinshire, has faced an acute problem of teacher recruitment across a range of subjects in its smaller secondary schools in particular. And it found a novel way of addressing the problem in setting up the eSchool programme in 2016. With the support of the Scottish Government, eSchool, or eSchool in translation, has developed into a national e-learning service delivering live, interactive online learning. Whilst it initially concentrated on supporting schools facing acute staffing shortages by providing subject specialist supply from an online teacher bank, it has in recent years delivered the live elements of the 3 to 18 national e-learning offer. This has resulted in a suite of programs designed to complement the work of schools and to support learners at all levels. These programs are available to schools at no cost, and they include study support, DYW Live, Gaelic enrichment, Scotland's Assembly, and provision for interrupted learners. eSchool enables schools throughout Scotland to expand and diversify the curriculum they can offer pupils and schools in 18 local authorities have taken advantage of that service. An earlier initiative to improve the supply of Gaelic medium teachers was a joint venture between Lewis Castle College and Jordanhill College, as they were then called. The blended learning course was designed to enable island-based students to train as teachers without having to relocate from their island homes. It succeeded in attracting a good number of new recruits from a previously untapped market in its early years, and subsequently morphed into a University of the Highlands and Islands PGDE course available throughout the UHI network, largely through English medium, but with a Gaelic option which currently has 5 students. For many years, the two main providers of initial teacher education in Gaelic were Aberdeen and Strathclyde universities. Sadly, my alma mater in the Northeast has withdrawn from the field and has also proposed to discontinue single honours courses in Gaelic and other modern languages. Again, a subject of much debate. In recent years, Solmore Ostaig and Edinburgh University have become leading providers, the former having 15 students on its MA Honours course this session, while there are 26 students training here. Edinburgh began offering an MA Honours course in Gaelic and primary education in 2014. The course has twin tracks for fluent speakers and learners, the latter option taking 5 years, including an immersion year at Solmore Ostaig. The programmes include 2 features unique to the University of Edinburgh, namely a year-long placement in a Gaelic medium primary school setting and dedicated courses on bilingualism and bilingual education with a focus on Gaelic and Scotland. 28 students who have graduated from the course since 2018 are now employed in the Gaelic medium sector, and I would like to congratulate the university on the initiative it has taken and is continuing to produce a stream of teachers. Strathclyde continues to provide training for the Gaelic medium sector in the PGDE primary and PGDE secondary courses, and there's also some Gaelic provision in its BA course. With notable exceptions, such as Scoil na Gaeltach, the National Centre of Excellence in Traditional Music, established in 2000 at Oban High School, provision for Gaelic culture is largely found out with the formal education system. The local and national mods of Common Gaelach, the network of 47 Féisceann or festivals and classes organised by Féisceann and Gael, MG Alapa's Film G competition, and the programme of events run by Ceolas in South Uist afford young people opportunities to immerse themselves in the culture and to gain skills in a wide range of arts. Around 6,000 youngsters take part in the Féisceann and in its Féis Golf Service of Gaelic Arts, which reaches a further 13,000 young folk. And we see here two slides. The first one from Féis Níling in Skye in an outdoor setting on a good day in Skye. They do happen. And the second one in an urban setting, also outdoors in Paisley, just showing the attraction of the language and culture in an urban setting. As I prepared to give this lecture at Moray House, my mind went back to a time at the end of last century. Gosh, I feel old now. When I frequented these parts as a member of a group set up by the then Scottish Consultative Council on the Curriculum to review the place of Scottish culture in the school curriculum. That was quite an experience and an eye-opener. The degree of skepticism, negativity, and resistance the group encountered in its consultations, in its framing of recommendations, and in the publication of its report, The School Curriculum and the Culture of Scotland, beggared belief, coming as it did on the eve of the opening of the Scottish Parliament. The report and its findings would bear revisiting 25 years on from its launch. It is ironic that opportunities to learn the language in the secondary school setting are limited, while uptake of Gaelic learning beyond school is mushrooming. This is evidenced by the extraordinary uptake of the Gaelic Duolingo course, on which 1.8 million have embarked since its launch in November 2019. More than 500,000 are active learners at present, and subscribers can go on to distance learning courses offered by Solmore, Ostaig, and other providers. Duolingo demonstrates that Gaelic has an international appeal, something I have personally witnessed and experienced in the sales of the Teach Yourself Gaelic course and dictionary, which I co-authored, and which has again been attested in the Gaelic with Jason YouTube offer, which reaches over 32,000 subscribers from its base in a small town in Maine in the USA. That site is reported to have had more than 1 million hits to date. Further evidence of active interest can be seen in the numbers following the Speak Gaelic series on BBC Alapa and accessing the resources of its associated online Learn Gaelic site. I hope I have demonstrated in the course of this lecture that Gaelic language and culture occupy a unique and pivotal place in Scottish history and life, and that the introduction and development of Gaelic medium education has been a success beyond all expectations. However, I would not wish to leave you with the impression that there are not challenges ahead for the language and for education in and about it. A language does not exist in a vacuum, and it is not insulated from the wider issues that confront society. The future of Gaelic is inextricably linked to the economic and social fortunes of the communities in which it is spoken, and is directly impacted by public policy and resources around employment, housing, transport, health, media, connectivity, and of course, education. In education, there is scope for pupils throughout Scotland to have greater access to learning facilities and exposure to the riches of Gaelic culture, arts, and literature, be it through in-school provision or remote learning as per eSchool. Issues including staff recruitment and retention, capacity building, continuity across sectors, funding and resources will have to be addressed fully and appropriately within an overall planning framework of Gaelic medium, if Gaelic medium education is to continue to prosper. The Scottish Languages Bill, currently making its way through Parliament, is a timely opportunity to address the areas of concern I have highlighted and to enable Gaelic medium education to maintain its luster as a shining star in the firmament of Scottish education. Moran Tangev, son Eistach. And I leave you, many thanks for listening, and I leave you with a slide from an event at Celtic Connections, which was focused on the work of Féishin and Gael, and just showing how much youngsters can appreciate and tune in to Gaelic culture when it is presented to them. Modern time.
Super. Thank you very much for that. If you'd like to stay up with me just for a second, that would be great. A fascinating and insightful journey through the world of Gaelic language and Gaelic education. I'm sure everybody here has valued every word that you said there. And also thank you very much for the questions and some of the insightful conversation there. It's very much appreciated. I would like to just say as well how glad I am that Moray House School of Education Sport remains a part of what you did refer to as the success story, which was nice to hear. I'm delighted that some of our students are with us here today to hear your words and hopefully to be able to take the journey further forward and to be part of an ongoing, hopefully, success story. Today, we've had a wonderful event, and these events don't happen without input from a number of colleagues. So I would just like to say a few thanks, if that's okay. First of all, to Pauline Patel, who's our events coordinator, who's been keeping us right and making sure that we are all here on time, staying to time just about, but that we also have some refreshments and an event that we're all proud of and valued taking part of. So thanks very much, Pauline. I'd also just like to thank Fiona Hanlon, Fiona Barry and Iona Brown and the rest of the Gaelic education team for putting this programme on today as well, and for supporting the school in putting on the annual lecture for us. So thank you very much for your input there. And Isla Parker as well, the Gaelic and Community Relations Officer, who has been doing a huge amount of work behind the scenes and progressing our work here with the rest of the team on our Gaelic education. So many thanks to everybody, but also lastly, again, many thanks, of course, to Professor Boyd Robertson for your fascinating lecture and for joining us here today. So on that, round of applause, and then please do help yourself to refreshments.